All right, welcome back. Good afternoon. So we have completed Heart of Thorns. Uh, Good things, happy times. So we're ready to continue our Guild Wars 2 story playthrough and start moving into Season 3. Now, Season 3 for me is a mixed bag, and I kind of mentioned this at the end of the whole Heart of Thorns thing. Um, I think it's some of the worst storytelling they've engaged in. This is where
As expected.
this is where they really go full like comic book. I've used the term several times, even in the videos, several times of Scooby Doo meets Fast and the Furious, and season three really captures that better than any other period of time. Uh, Season three is Arenanet at their most Arenanet when they're doing stupid things versus when they're doing good things. However, a lot of players really remember season three fondly because the content was regular, the content was engaging, the gameplay was good. Season three maps are still the best fast way to get ascended trinkets. So, like, if you want, some of this stuff right here. So on this character, I don't actually have any of the season three ascended stuff because it's on my other character, but the 0 to 0 character currently. But if I want that, like if I want to replace this ring that I got, when I boosted this character originally with like an ascended berserker ring, I'm gonna get the chance to do that. It's gonna be easy. So that's one of the things season three has going for it. In addition to the engaging gameplay, the fact that the content was regular, the fact that it was new and exciting coming off of Heart of Thorns. Um, so there were a lot of positive things about season three, and we'll talk about those as we start actually getting into the gameplay, start rolling with the content. So a couple things as we get started. Numerous letters, right? So this one that goes way back to season two. This one way back to season two. Apparently, we didn't get a whole lot of mail during Heart of Thorns, right? So, and then this one, because I advanced this mastery track a few minutes ago, that's related to when you start the legendary weapon crafting mastery track there, then you get this mail saying, hey, you should build a legendary. I don't know about that right now. I'm not in a big rush to do map completion on this account, but we got these other two. So this is the one that's actually going to drive our story as we start on season three. Newt Whitebear over here, so he's like the leader of the Norn. Although that's kind of a loose thing because the Norn don't really like to be structured like that. They're all fiercely independent, but just he is functionally the leader of the Norn, and he says, "Hey, blah blah blah, like formalities. There's going to be a memorial for Air because she died in Heart of Thorns, right? So please join us for this memorial." And then we also get this memorial for Firstborn Traherne. I thought you should know we've created a statue in memory of Firstborn Traherne. If you want to stop by, pay your respects. It's located near the Groves entrance. So one of these is going to be an instance where we actually spend the entire instance saying goodbye to Air, mildly annoying. And the other one is just like, hey, come look at the statue, and then it triggers some other stuff in terms of this broken Caliburg. So we're going to go to the Grove first and take care of that one before we enter the instance. So Grove is actually it's this one over here, right? So let's head to the Grove and take a look at that. I'm not going to speculate. Well, I mean, I am going to speculate. I don't know why they chose to have an entire big, kind of frustratingly slow instance. Oh, good, another letter. Oh, they really want me to craft a legendary. All right, I don't know why we get a whole instance dedicated to saying goodbye to Air, and this is what we get for Traherne, and it's a very different sort of thing. However, it may be because I think broadly speaking, Air was more liked than Traherne. So here we got the big Traherne statue, right? You get Air in small doses, and I think some folks found her to be a more sympathetic character. Maybe they could relate to her family plight in some way. For me, it's very off-putting. It's kind of silly, but I think for some folks, they maybe can relate to just having a family that struggled with bonds and so forth. So I think Air is kind of broadly liked. Norn people are also like people who like Norn as their primary race are very like they really like Norn, right? There is, like in any game, like folks who play predominantly a certain thing within the game, you kind of contend, you sort of have the ability to kind of generalize or stereotype them a little bit. It's true in Guild Wars 2 as well. I'm okay with it to a degree, and I think it is relatively true. Um, and I don't know that the folks who like Traherne were really, that hung up on it. And of course, Traherne had a very different death, right? He dies a hero. Air kind of dies in a fashion that's that's fairly disappointing, right? Like that's not how he wanted Norn to die. Anyway, let's talk to Warren Lead here, see what he has to say about it. Have I come to pay my respects? I have. I wanted to see what sort of memorial you've made. It was created by pack survivors from the campaign against Mordermoth. He died fighting the dragon, but his sacrifice may well have saved us all. Yeah, I think. Wow, that's super annoying. I think there's some validity in that, right? Because apparently the dragon was going to persist in Traherne even after we had defeated Mordermoth within the dream, right? And so we say, oh man, so this is Guild Wars 2 is so good at like all this extra dialogue, but we just can't seem to escape it right now. So we defeated Mordermoth, and so the dragon apparently was gone, and Canuck said it was silent, but it was not silent for Traherne. And Traherne said, hey, I'm attached to this dragon, like it's fully within me, and that seed still exists within me. You have to kill me too, and so we did. So had we spared Traherne, presumably Mordermoth would have persisted in some small form, and then ultimately tried to make like a comeback, right? So we had to kill Traherne. A soldier of the pact asked me to give you this letter. They must have expected you to visit the statue. Yeah, I mean, sure, it's unusual. It's not unusual in Guild Wars 2. In the world of Tyria, that would seem to make perfect sense. But, for us, that would certainly be weird in real life. So I guess we're being a little more realistic here than Arenanet's prone to do. That's unusual. Thanks, I'll take a look at it. Well, let's take a look at it. Wish to discuss important matter with you. Meet me at your home as soon as possible. Okay, so if we go to our home instance and talk to this guy, then that sets us on the quest to convert this into an ascended weapon of, I didn't do the research before doing this today, but if I remember correctly, there's 5 different options. There's like a great sword, a dagger, and I think a couple other things, maybe a shield, I don't remember. But we turn this broken weapon into an ascended weapon of our choice from a limited number of options. It's a good path to get a legendary, or to get an ascended weapon if you just really need an ascended weapon. Okay. So that is our process, and I guess you can consider the entire process of crafting that weapon as kind of our means of saying goodbye to Traherne. And if you buy off on that, then maybe we do get more of a goodbye for Traherne than we get for Air. Because what we're going to get for Air is an instance where we kind of are like, memorial to Air. Everybody, let's talk about what Air meant to us. And it's going to get interrupted anyway. And we're going to see that here in just a second. So let's go pay our respects to the Northern Air. Because we super liked her. So that was sarcasm. I didn't actually communicate that sarcasm, bro. I'm not a big fan of Air. I'm actually not a big fan of almost anyone in Destiny's Edge. I think when Arenanet did Destiny's Edge, they wanted to give the impression that these were flawed heroes, right? And they do that. I think they overdo it to the point where they're not really likable. I think if you're going to go that route, then you better make them likable characters. They gave them the flaws, but I'm going the wrong way because I'm running my mouth. They gave them the flaws, but didn't give them the character and charisma to kind of counterbalance that. So then they just end up being unlikable, and that's unfortunate. Ritlock, because we get so much of Ritlock over a period of time, more than any of the other members. Um, Gradually, kind of. Where am I going? Where are these arrows? I thought it started up there by the. Oh, it starts over by her. I was going the right way to begin with. It's over by her home instance, or by her little instanced area there, where her house is. Okay. We're gonna get a ton of Ritlock. Like we can't get rid of Ritlock. It just like this guy's it's like stuck to us. Something about his fur or whatever. Um, but we are already done with 2 members of Destiny's Edge. There are 2 that we are not going to see again. Air's dead, right? And we're not going to see Zoja again. That's a little bit spoilery maybe, but um, it like the only other way you're going to find out is by going through the entire story and then thinking to yourself, we didn't see Zoja again. You're not going to see her again. There's a whole conversation about why that may or may not be. Everybody, so we can see all these people have gathered here to like say goodbye, right? Newt, what's up, buddy?
Of course, Newt. She was a dear friend.
Let's head up. My people will be glad you're here. Some may have questions about what happened.
I hope it's not why. I'm still struggling with that one myself.
Aren't we all? Perhaps that's the answer Bram left to seek.
He's not here?
No. He arranged this and then took to the mountains. The fire inside that boy. I almost feel sorry for any of Jormag's minions he comes across.
Sounds like he's working through it in true Bram fashion. Good.
Make yourself at home. Your Tribune friend certainly has. Now I'll leave you to it, Commander. Speak with whomever you wish and celebrate, or pay your respects privately. The spirit of air can be found in either.
So as much as I don't like Air, like that's probably a fair statement, right? Air had a private side and a public side, and she was. So this is actually like one of the more interesting things about Air. So she had like this artsy side, right? She made these statues, and she was working on one. I'm sorry, no, she wasn't. I believe this is the statue of Air. I think we're gonna get to that in a second. But she made these statues, right, of great like Norn heroes and all that. So she had that private side, and then she had the public side where she was like a great hunter and hero, right?
She had him dead to rights. We all knew it. And what was he going to do? Beg? Plead? Wasn't his style. And Air wouldn't buy it anyway. So, he just jumped off the ledge. Well, she wouldn't give him the satisfaction of escape, even to his death. She shot him before he hit the ground. Damn, that Nord knew how to exact revenge.
That's
So
just
true.
like her. Thank you for that story, Tribune Brimstone.
I'm not sure why no one's ever made a tapestry of that moment. Oh, hey, good to see you, Commander.
You too. Spreading a little air cheer?
Things were getting too serious. Just ensuring they remember the right air.
Hey, you're that Ritlock trombone, the Revenant, right?
Close enough. Now why don't you do Uncle Trombone a favor and buzz off?
But I want to hear about the Blood Legion.
Don't you think quietly weeping in the corner by yourself would be more fun than this?
Nah, this is fine.
Yeah.
Have you heard from Zoja or Logan? I was crossing my fingers they'd be well enough to make this.
Still both laid up on my last visit.
Too bad. Mordremoth's death came with a great toll, for sure.
You know, with those 2 out of the field and Snaff and Air gone and Kaith, well, there really is no Destiny's Edge anymore.
True.
I'm sorry, Ritlock. I know how important it was to you.
But there's no sense in looking back. Maybe it's time to start again.
Another guild? Would Air want us to do that?
She wouldn't want us to get caught up in her death like she did with Snaff's. Regret gets you nowhere. And Tyria would probably sleep more soundly with the Dragon Slayer at the helm of a new guild.
We could do a lot of good. It didn't go perfectly, but the small group we had was pretty capable against Mordremoth. What would we call it?
Fate's Razor!
I will not be part of a guild called Fate's Razor.
What about Dragon's Watch?
Dragon's Watch. I like that.
Can I be in it?
No.
But I've got my Uncle Beamish's magical sword.
Not yet, kid.
All right.
Commander.
We still got dialogue. Jeez. And that's actually a good thing. It's just keeping me from talking.
It's Garm. He came home.
But if they're going to have a long instance based on just remembering air and not with no action, it's best that they keep it moving along pretty well. All right, greet Rox. Before we greet Rox, and there probably is dialogue, so we got to pay attention. We had, what was her name? Nyla? Where'd Nyla go? There she is, Nyla Dagdaughter. So she gave us a couple things, right? One, she called him Ritlock Trombone versus Tribune Ritlock Brimstone. That actually stuck around pretty well, like one of many like memes internal to the Guild Wars 2 community, and particularly at the time. I don't know if that one's kind of worn out as welcome. I don't really do the whole Guild Wars 2 subreddit thing these days, but it definitely had its moment, and folks rather enjoyed it. But more importantly, so we get her injecting herself here a couple times. And this was, remember, this content was years and years ago now. This was probably, let's see, where was I when Season 3 was a thing? Yeah, this must have been... ...2016? Something like that? 2015, 2016, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't have the date in front of me. Like, I'm not going to go to the wiki for it. But it's been 7 years, give or take. So this kid may now be an adult. We almost have like some story promise here. We like not a promise, but we have some potential where we got this kid who has interest in all of these things, not in kid things. She's got our Uncle Beamish's magic sword, and like really want to see Nyla come into some sort of story in the future because we have opportunity given us by this seemingly meaningless dialogue, right? So we had Ritlock telling these stories about Norn. So to come back to kind of something that Newt had said, where we got these different sides of Air and her memory, and Ritlock almost makes mention of that too. He's like, I want them to remember the right Air, and he's telling these stories that capture that public heroic side of Air, right? And now we have Rox rolling up. Remember when Air dies and Bram's talking about it, and he wants to take her body back and stuff, he notes that Garm is nowhere to be found. And then that kind of dies on the vine, or seemingly dies on the vine. And we don't hear anything about it. We move on with the entire Heart of Thorns thing. We kill Mordremoth, etc. Without Garm ever being mentioned again. That is Air's pet. Air is a ranger, so she has a pet, same as Rox. Look who comes back with Garm. It's Rox.
Rox, you and Garm.
Commander, what are you doing here? What did I walk into?
A memorial for Air. You couldn't have brought a better gift.
Yeah, nice work, soldier.
We're both tired and hungry. Wasn't expecting all this. Garm's hurt too. We should get him healing as soon as possible.
What can I do to help?
I'll send for a healer. In the meantime, there's plenty of food around.
I'll do it. Rox, you rest.
All right, so here we got Garm. We're gonna spend just a moment of this instance like taking care of him. Note that he's got like this like green mist coming off him. I think that is meant to communicate that he is dirty.
Hungry, Garm?
Hungry? All right, let's get something for Garm to eat. As I recall, yeah, we got some meat sitting here. We'll bring him a big ol'... It's an impressive steak. We'll bring him this impressive steak. Here, buddy, eat a steak.
There you go, boy. You're home now. I still can't believe it. How did you find Garm?
Tracked him from the crash site. Wasn't easy. The jungle's still crawling with Mordrum. Some of them have come unhinged without their master's voice. Poor Garm followed Air's scent into the middle of it all. He was lucky to be alive. We both are.
Bram's gonna be so happy when he gets back.
He's not here?
No, he's in the mountains blowing off some steam.
Well, I'll stay with Garm and make sure he's okay. When he's ready, we can try to catch up with Bram.
I'm sure the cold air will do Garm some good after all that jungle heat.
Yeah, if I never see another pocket raptor as long as I live, I'll die happy.
Come on. Let's get to what we're here for.
So I do genuinely think that reference to pocket raptors is just like a little joke with the community about the frustration that pocket raptors caused when Heart of Thorns first, when people initially played through Heart of Thorns. All right, so interesting thing before I get to taking care of Garm there. Interesting thing that Rox mentioned. She mentions that the jungle is still crawling with Mordrum. The Mordrum are still a problem, and in fact, they're like a different sort of problem now. They don't know what to do with themselves So occasionally we see Arenanet do this, where they try to kind of make an explanation, even though we've been given the big thing about the maps being locked in time. They will occasionally try and give us an explanation for like why dragon minions are still active after story has come out where we've killed a dragon, right? And so that's what we kind of see here. Is like, oh yeah, the Mordrums still exist, and they're, even though they don't have the voice of the dragon, like they're no longer Sylvari and all this, so it's still like an issue. They will do that like a few different times. We'll kind of get something like that throughout the story, and at the end here of Season 3, we will actually get kind of the opposite, where we will get a new map that will examine an old foe associated with one of the dragons that's now dead, and what that looks like, which I think is actually an interesting thing. The map itself, like that whole story, is really like out of place. However, or I'm sorry, that's the one that's like kind of out of place. But it does give us some interesting stuff to look at lore-wise, so we'll get to that when we get to that. It's at the end of Season 3. Before we get there, though, Elder Pet Healer. So the medic for pets done shown up. Hey, can we help out anyway? Hot water. He's got blood and dirt caked all over him. Why didn't Rox come on, Rox, get your stuff together. Like, you're a ranger. You should know how to take care of these animals before you bring them all the way across a continent back to their homes. All right.
It smells awful.
That's Air's pet, Garm.
Oh my, I'm sorry. He must have heard me. Sorry, Garm.
It's a fun touch how they all kind of reel back while he like shakes off the water. That's kind of a fun thing. What do we got here?
Quick.
She died in battle. There was no prolonged suffering.
Such craftsmanship.
All right. So there's some things we can do here. Basically, we're gonna, one of the old fill the green bar things, but we got some options, right? Different things we can do. This one here, lay flowers. In fact, well, examine. The only thing this beautiful work in progress needs is a bouquet of flowers at her feet. All right. We'll go get some flowers to honor her. I think there's some back here, if I remember right. Yeah. There we go. Got some flowers. Alpine lilies. They're actually quite lovely, aren't they? All right, throw them down. For you, Air. Boop. Okay, bar goes up a little bit. We can help with the crafting of like big ice sculptures in honor of Air. Fortunately, the commander is a really good sculptor. Boom. I made an ice statue of Garm.
You honor her. This spirit recalls the importance of the pack, and you were part of hers.
Well, I do what I can. Let's see. I think there's one other thing.
It's all so moving.
Do we want to hear? Do we want to learn a whole bunch of stuff about Air? Tell me the longest Air story you know. Good Lord, no. What else we got going on here? Feel free to perform a dance. Should we perform a dance? This is an absurdity. Dance for Air, everybody. Alright. We've done enough to kind of get a sampling of things we can do to honor Air. Let's just get the bar full and move on. And not belabor belabor the issue any further. There we go. Barful. Fortunately, they didn't make that like a super painful. Sometimes those green bars can be agonizing. All right, can we now move forward? Would you like to say a few words about air? So, you know what? Before we get to that, we'll ask one question. What put air on the path to
Air had
greatness?
passed Longbow Height when she made her vow. One night, 100 dragon spawn attacked Holbreck. Jormag's ice brood were merciless. They brutally killed her friend Silas the Weaver, a crafter like Air herself. With Silas's blood still upon her, she swore to destroy the ice brood and all the elder dragons.
All right, so we get a little bit of background there about Air and how she came to be a hero and all that. Okay, cool. Would I like to say a few words?
Everyone,
Absolutely.
lend us your ears. The one who killed Zaitan with Air's Tegauken would like to say a few words.
We've all lost people we loved. And the pain of that can be overwhelming. But we can't let that pain stop us from moving forward without them. Without her. Instead, we honor, celebrate her life. The gift that she was. Air is a part of me. A part of all of us. How do we thank the gods for that? By living the rest of our own lives larger. Better. Bolder. We love. We laugh. We defend our world. And we fight for what's right. We do what she would have done. Homesteaders. Hunters. Heroes all. To Air.
To Air.
To a great
Nicely
warrior
done.
and
To
friend.
Air.
Goodbye, Air.
I'd love to like poke fun at the speech, but it's as good as anything they were going to come up with. Like it's really truly not bad. Portions that you can see being given in like as a eulogy at any normal funeral. So yeah, perfectly acceptable. Good job.
Commander, this just arrived for you.
Oh, good. A letter. Well, the letters are back in force. Good to see. I've got something fabulous to show you. Get here as soon as you can. There's a gate set up in Radasum, but it's top secret. All right, so Timey's got something for us. We've now said goodbye to Air, as we should, but Timey has something for us in Radasum. Let's let Ritlock know that we have things to do.
Looks like I'm off to Radanovus. Ritlock, care to follow?
Sure, but I need to take care of something on the way. Or rather, tell someone I won't be taking care of something. Never mind. I'll meet you there.
Sure. Rox, Ritlock talked me into founding a new guild. It'd be great to have you. And pass the invitation on to Bram when you see him. Actually, don't. I'll do it in person. I don't want him to think we're merely replacing Destiny's Edge after his mother's death.
I get it. And I think he will too, when the time's right.
All right. Let's see what Timey's got for us. I'm not going to dwell too much on the very end of that. As far as we will see we'll see more of the consequences of all that and like how it ties into the story as we move forward through the story. It's not something where any sort of conversation at this point or foreshadowing or anything would like really help. It's going to be what it's going to be, and we'll get into that when the time comes. All right. Do we want to run there? Just to save? No. Let's. Oh. I haven't even been to Radasum on this character yet. Was saving 3 silver worth it? Would that have been worth it? I'm going to assume no. Is that a naked person? Why are you naked over there, Athara? Man. People in Tyria, I'll tell you what. No class.
Never get recruits. These dust bunnies have no interest in gut-wrenching, mind-blowing war. The mists are too exclusive.
And they were for a long time. And they were. All right. So we're gonna talk to this guy, and he's gonna like hook us up with the secret gate to Timey's lab in Rodonovus. And the jokes about like the secret lab and Rodonovus and all that, like that whole thing, will kind of be a thing for a chunk of season 3. Oh, am I talking to this researcher?
1 second, please.
Security breach detected.
Gollum, what are you doing?
Responding with full force.
Responding with full force. I'd rather you didn't.
Stop! Halt! Cease! Desist!
Unidentified intruder does not fulfill height requirements. Prepare for termination.
Not fulfill height requirements.
Stop that rusty hunk of stupidity! Call your stupid old Gollum off!
I'm trying!
Oh, Timey. What's going on around here, Timey? This place is out of control. Is this your lab?
Timey, sorry about that.
Don't worry about it. All this crunchy old tech's been overstimulated by the influx of magic. Glad you're here.
Yeah, I got your letter.
Funny, I also sent one to this guy, but he barely made it.
Your note failed to mention how to navigate this Asuran playground.
He got lost trying to find the lab. I had to follow the non-stop stream of char expletives to track him down.
City of the future, my tale.
It's good to see you. I was so happy when I saw your mission was a success. But then I heard about Marshal Traherne.
He saved us all. His sacrifice won't soon be forgotten.
But there's good news too. Ritlock says we're starting a new guild. So exciting!
Glad you're on board.
Of course you are! Someone has to be the brains. Haha, kidding. In all seriousness though, I suspect some of the things I'm working on in this place will come in very handy.
How have you been doing here?
Great, it's fantastic. Well, it was before every Asura and their grand mentor showed up.
At least you have a lot of hands to pitch in at the Dragon Lab.
What do you mean, Commander? I've never heard of this room you describe. Keep it down about the Dragon Lab. I don't want anyone finding out about it. Especially...
Hello, progeny.
Hey, it's Flump.
Counselor Flunt, how lovely to see you. I'm so pleased you didn't end up on a Chalk's breakfast menu this morning.
You can stow the dim insults. They'll never be clever enough to wound me. Now, have there been any new developments today?
Why, none that I can think of.
Allow me to warn you about keeping secrets from me, progeny. My wrath is as fierce as my intellect.
Oh, that sounds terrifying. I wouldn't dream of hiding something from you, Counselor. I'm totally hiding something from him. Let's
That
head
is
there
funny.
now, but not the way you know. We're going through the gate. I've configured it to appear as if we're going to the command center, but we're really going to you-know-where. Except there's a catch. You have to outsmart the security measures.
You're joking, right?
Not this time. Give it a shot and I'll observe. See if you can crack the code. I'll give you a hint. Do exactly as you're told.
All right, let's go ahead and do this. Sometimes I don't bother. You can skip it. Skip the puzzle. If I remember correctly, when you skip the puzzle, you have to like fight some golems or something instead. But we'll attempt to solve it.
Unidentified user. Security measures activated. Enter passcode. Phase 1 of 5 complete. Phase 2 commencing now. Enter passcode.
5 phases. Brutal. Brutal.
Phase 2 complete. Enter passcode. Phase 3 complete. Enter passcode.
I think it's actually the same every time. I bet you that sequence is in the wiki. Not sure. Didn't check, but I suspect it is. Because I seem to recall that the last time is always 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Which makes it a touch easier since it's sequential like that. Hey, Dragon Lab.
Sorry to put you through that. I need to keep people who may or may not be named Flunt out of here.
Now that the subterfuge is out of the way, can we get to what you called us here for?
Yes, this is a replica of the leyline energy map we found outside of Tarir. I've been tracking the movement of magic since Mordremoth's death. It's been in total chaotic flux. Here, there, everywhere. See, that dot is the egg chamber. It lit up like a Lunar New Year firework after the dragon went bye-bye. But as you can see here, the egg's doing great.
What are we looking at? A feed of the egg chamber.
Yeah, the Exalted and the Radanovans shared a ton of information. They must have helped them design their security system.
And then you broke into it.
No, I utilized it to check on the egg.
So you broke into it?
Hey, we're all friends, right? I don't think they'd mind. Maybe just don't mention it around any floaty gold people.
Do you have access to surveillance all over Tarir?
Back to the leyline map. So this other point is... Huh, that's new. The northern bloodstone dot is flaring up. I'll have to keep an eye on that.
The spot where Mordremoth died looks like it's cooling down a little.
Yeah, a lot of that energy's been put back into the system. I'm trying to model its patterns, but this map isn't built for detailed readings. Yet. In the meantime, look at this.
So this is, by the way, while I'm waiting for her to make her long walk, the first introduction of the idea of the magic and the dragons and everything is all being like a big closed system.
What is it?
Not to toot my own warbler or anything, but I killed a chalk or two in my time alone here. Since the others don't know about this place, I couldn't ask to have defenses installed, so they pop up every once in a while when the lab's drawing a lot of power. Exactly. Get him.
Okay, Tommy.
Sound makes my teeth.
You'll be wearing that one for days. Feel the fury.
Timmy, you gotta stop eating cookies in your lab.
I
Yeah,
think they
it's so
smell the
true.
organ I harvested.
Time to do some real
Might be one of
damage.
their kin.
More incoming. It ain't nap time yet.
Nap time? Was someone suggesting it was nap time? Ritlock, what are you talking about, buddy?
Feel the fury.
I'm gonna wait for that bubble. I need it. Oh, I still got my longsword. Or not longsword. I still got the longbow on. Instead of the greatsword from when I was doing the Mordremoth fight.
Exterminate. Don't worry about their goo. I'll clean that up later.
Alright, Tommy. You were saying?
Anyway, this thing is some sort of organ I found in one of the larger ones. It's part of their digestive system, and as you know, they feed on ley energy, so it got me curious.
Any valuable findings yet?
None I can explain right now. I ran some ley energy through it, and it came out different on the other side.
Different?
I'm not really sure how just yet. It was barely measurable with the equipment I have. I need to develop some other device to actually observe the phenomenon.
What's that sludge you're keeping it in?
Blighting pod fluid. Remember that stuff? It has wonderful preservative and even restorative properties.
Fluid. From the blighting pods. The things that made horrible Mordrum abominations out of corpses.
So you do remember it.
Timey, do you think maybe that might be a bad idea?
You worry too much. In research, there's no reward without risk. And if I'm gonna stay one step ahead of everyone outside this lab, I have to take a lot of risks. But one thing I can't risk is staying away from the main lab too long. It arouses suspicion. Let's go.
Okay, back to the main lab. Now there is,
I got your back. You first.
let's see, where is it? Up here. There's a whole bunch of dialogue that takes place up here. It's kind of a extra thing. That's why it says optional up here. So remember, everyone else is right here on the other side.
Don't worry about Tiny leading us to it. Flunge assures me he has her under his thumb. From what I heard, Tiny has an advantage. I'd excel if I had Zoja as a mentor too.
Did you see where Tiny and that odd crew of hers went?
The things are all a buzz about some group called the White Mantle. They're so short-sighted.
I didn't capture it all, but I got some of the data in their crew notes. And another chart here. That's multiple in one day. How cool. I'm going to sneak a look at Tiny's equipment. Watch my back. What man? Stuck out here without her golem? I don't know how she does it.
Tiny? Yeah, cute as a bug. If my son were here, I'd introduce them. Imagine the progeny.
So weird.
The leader of the Vigil? Oh my, she's quite impressive.
Don't tell him, but I secretly call him Blunt, because he is. Tiny got a raw deal on that waypoint device.
I heard Zoja scrambled, drooling. Explains why Tiny is out here on her own.
Okay, so we actually get a whole bunch of stuff there, right? So we get a lot on just Asura being Asura, right? Kind of like spying on each other, stealing each other's research. Like, they're all very underhanded in their academic pursuits. That's just an Asura thing. We get a little bit about Zoja's current state, and that's like never really going to change. Or whether or not Zoja's state changes, we don't know. Zoja just seemingly disappears. And so I don't. Apparently, there's a story. It's been around for a long time that has to do with some dispute with the voice actor, and they didn't want to roll her out with another voice actor. I don't necessarily buy that 100%. I think that's probably a contributing factor, but they've changed voice actors for other characters, Rox most notably. So I don't know why it would be like a deal breaker, especially after all this time, and especially after being in the lighting pod. I don't know why they wouldn't just change Zoja's voice actor, unless there was like some kind of clause within the contract that like granted exclusivity to Felicia Day. I don't know. I don't have any knowledge on that. So like that's all speculation on my part. That's just the story that's kind of been out there about potentially why we haven't seen more of Zoja. Again, I don't know though, unless there's some sort of legal power preventing them from using Zoja without Felicia Day. I don't know why they wouldn't just wouldn't reintroduce her at some point. But I don't know why they wouldn't reintroduce her at all. I mean, she's just gone, right? And then we get what else did we get there? Oh yeah, so somebody is out there right now. We're about to go see. Let's go right now because they mentioned the leader of the Vigil. Leader of the Vigil is here, right? And then we also heard, there's a second char. 2 char, 1 day. What's going on with that? 1 char being Ritlock. The other one apparently being Almora. What is going on?
It's just Tiny's friends again.
I could outrun a centaur.
Where'd I get that swiftness?
General Soulkeeper, this is quite a surprise. What brings you to Arenanet?
You do, Commander. I've come here to offer you a new position within the Pact. The marshal rank is, vacant. And we want you to fill it.
This is an honor.
I'm glad you view it in that light. The Pact is hanging on by a thread.
I see.
I can tell you're having your doubts, so let me just be upfront about the role. Certain Pact elements feel like Marshal Traherne's mistake was going out into the field and getting himself killed. The new Marshal would be planted safely in an office in Lion's Arch, still leading the troops, but out of harm's way.
As flattered as I am by your offer, I'm going to have to respectfully decline, General. After the Mordremoth battle, I believe I, Ritlock, and the others would be more effective operating as our own guild.
I understand the decision on your early retirement, although I'm disappointed. I still believe in the Pact's goal.
I do too, and I'll always be ready to lend a hand. It'll just be outside the system.
Out from under a mountain of paperwork, you mean?
Laugh it up, No Eyes. I have something for you, too. A letter from the Black Citadel. You must have really brushed some higher-ups the wrong way.
Are you sure you want to just crumple that up and throw it away?
Why not? It's what I did with the last two.
What did I hear? You're not in the pact anymore? Wait, what do I call you? Uba?
No. How about we just stick with Commander for now?
Technically, it's a title for life, so you're welcome to it.
Noises. We got noises.
That didn't sound good. Quick, let's go see what's happening.
It's coming from this way. So, it makes sense what they're saying about the packed martial position. That's logical, right? Like, we don't put our generals on the front lines, right? Russians do because they're stupid. We generally don't do that. It doesn't make much sense to kill your own leadership.
I came in through the caves because I couldn't find the gate. I wasn't expecting such an enthusiastic welcome.
Did you see that? What was so mad? Even his fleas jumped ship. Canuck, you're my hero.
Why the surprise visit?
I'm here answering the call.
But Mordremoth's dead. We killed...
Oh, it's not the jungle dragon's call. This time it's Anis's.
Still holds your billet, huh?
She does. But certain messy events have transpired, and I'm assured that if I clean them up, my billet will be released, and I'll once again be free from any yoke.
How can I help?
Minister Cordicus recently left the Queen's protective custody. Anis sent me and a squad of Shining Blade to help the good minister find his way back to Divinity's Reach.
Any idea on his whereabouts?
There's been a flare-up of White Mantle activity in northern Maguma, and intel points to him possibly heading there.
That's the crazy magical hotspot we saw up by the Bloodstone.
I thought the minister claimed to not be in bed with those Mersat lovers.
Didn't we all?
Ritlock, get word to the others. Marjorie might be getting a little restless in Divinity's Reach and want in on the action.
Commander, if you like, you can hitch a ride on my airship. It's on our way. We can drop you off.
Now that's an offer I can't turn down, General.
Perfect. I'll grab my Shining Blade detachment and meet you there.
Okay, so they are actually like filling some gaps here, right? Because
This place has been going bonky.
so you know, with Heart of Thorns ending, we defeated Mordremoth, and major change, right? Like you know, what does it mean for all these various characters? What does it mean for the Pact? Well, we see that, you know, the Vigil leader, at least here, General Almora Soulkeeper, who's apparently speaking on behalf of the Pact when we're offered this job, is the Pact is moving forward. They're going to continue to battle dragons. This is what they were formed to do when we formed the Pact to fight Zaitan. And so no changes there. Now, what does it mean for us? Remember, we're given like kind of a assistant to the Marshal. I don't even know that it's specifically like a 2IC thing. I don't know that it's meant to be perceived that way. But we're given this position of commander within the Pact. And then we really like we kind of go way above and beyond that, both in terms of performance, because we're the one who killed both Zaitan and Mordremoth, along with the help of some of our buddies here. But also in terms of like we start exercising a lot more authority than that position would give us as well. So like we have a problem there, right? So they kind of clean this up by having us simply leave the Pact. So now we're no longer the commander, right? We're now, and Timey raises that question. So you're no longer the commander. What are you? You're Poobah now. And you know, so then we fix like this problem. They clean up another little thing, which is how are we going to refer to the player character from this point forward? From this point forward, the player character is always commander. Right, and they'll even poke fun at that much later in the story. Much later in the story, at one point we'll be asked, "What are you the commander of?" and we'll say nothing, and the character will kind of like be like, "Well, you know, that's stupid," because it is stupid. But you, at the same time, though, it is a genuine problem. I think for them is they're writing the narrative and or the story, and they're trying to figure out how to refer to the player character when the player character could be any one of 5 races, either gender. They might have in their headcanon based on their character design that they're like gender neutral or something like that. Like, and then all the other things that might exist within headcanon as far as who and what their player character is, and they kind of address all that by just saying, okay, from this point forward, the player character is commander. Whatever. Like, okay. Is it elegant? No. Is it functional? Yeah. It's actually relatively, I don't want to say clever, but it's a good idea on the part of Arenanet to just kind of like rubber stamp that and we can move forward. Commander, that's what you are. Okay. So, we get these status updates. Now we've heard, okay, Marjorie's like hanging out in not Lines Arch, Dimity's Reach, presumably with Casimir. They apparently have the freedom to join us. Ritlock. So it was weird that Almora, because Almora is outside of, or seemingly outside of like Char Legion's control because she has the Vigil and that's her thing. But apparently she still has close ties to the Legions because here she's delivering a message on behalf of the Legions to Ritlock. Ritlock has apparently been functioning outside of the control of the Legions, and that's what they're unhappy about. We'll find out more about that. We'll get clarity on that as we move forward in Season 3. And then we find out Canuck. So we didn't really get to know Canuck well until Heart of Thorns. And now we see that he's going to be with us for a while longer. We find out that he is still working for Anise. He has not been, in spite of the success of the battle against Mordermoth, Anise has not kind of cut him loose from his obligations. What is really like a, like hard labor almost. Like it's part of his sentence, for his actions. He's still caught up in that. What a day, huh? Almost enough to make a person feel unwelcome. I think he's referring to the fact that alarms went off when he showed up. What's going on? Oh, yes. So the White Mantle, right? Poking around this area up to the north in Maguma. The concept of the White Mantle being tied to the Bloodstone, this precedes Guild Wars 2. This goes all the way back to the first game. So it's some like deep-rooted lore. And they're going to come back around. And that's another thing that Season 3 did pretty extensively, and that's when we start getting, I've talked about how I think Arenanet relies way too heavily on the first game to develop the second game, particularly in the area of like narrative. I do think that we've seen some good references to it up until this point, and we're going to continue, but then it just starts to get to be too much. So by the time we get to Path of Fire and Season 4, it's just too much by a large margin. But that trend, which began a little bit earlier, is now going to really start, and actually began in Season 2, right? When we did like the Ascension Ritual and stuff like that. And I liked that. Even now, tying the White Mantle to the Bloodstone, like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, they're going to go through a phase between now and like the end of Season 4, or not quite the end, but halfway through Season 4 at least, when they're so reliant on the first game for the second game's like concepts that it's to their detriment. And so while this is solidly rooted in the first game and it's not bad, it's just the beginning of a trend. The Throne of Divinity's Reach has a Royal Pantaloons in a bunch. Well, that must be exciting. Your people's history with the White Mantle is wrecking nerves. Okay, so this is, not everyone who plays Guild Wars 2 played the first game, right? And I don't know the first game as well as I know the Guild Wars 2, because for me, it didn't hold my attention the same way Guild Wars 2 did. So I would play the first Guild Wars for a couple of years, and then I'd take a break, and then I'd play it for a couple of years, and then take a break. So, yeah, I slept through history class. What's the White Mantle? They used to rule Kryta a long time ago. They worshipped ancient beings called the Mersat. We battled the Mersat in the first Guild Wars game. White Mantle were their pawns. What are the Mersat? They're long-lived, magical, mean to the bone, and extinct. Crichtons wiped them out, won the war, took back their kingdom under Queen Salma's leadership. I've heard that they, this being the White Mantle, are trying to resurrect one. They're insane. My intel tells me they're in northern Maguma. We heard that from Timey as well, right? Flare in ley energy. Running experiments with the Bloodstone. Well, that might be the ley energy right there. They want power. They'll do whatever it takes to get it. All right. Do we want to go through all this stuff? The White Mantle lost the war, but they've been underground, well hidden, since everyone seems surprised to see them. But even in the core story, right, Guild Wars 2 core story, we get references to to the white mantle possibly being tied to the bandits. So this isn't like a new thing. Does the Countess know who's funding them? No, but those ruins around Dry Top weren't so fancy. So I'm guessing it isn't from their own treasury. What ruins around Dry Top? Ruins around Dry Top. Huh. I'm not sure. We will see more of that later. I don't remember which ruins that's a reference to now. Why are they suddenly so active? They've been biding their time, rebuilding their numbers, and now that we're so engaged, right, with Zaitan, Mordramoth, other things, now they have their opportunity, right, with everything going on. Kind of like China acting the fool with everything else going on in the world, right? Pact and Sylvari been greatly weakened. Can't discount the increase in magic, right? So that would be advantageous. And that's, again, now we're getting, at this point in the story, we're getting a concept introduced that has kind of been hinted at a couple times, but hasn't really been like locked into their world building until now, which is that all this magic functions in a closed system, and when magic is lost in one place, it can be gained by others and so forth. How serious is it? I'd be surprised if it were an empty threat. You don't wait a couple hundred years to fizzle out like a wet fuse. Good point. Queen Jenna is going to do everything within her power. My squad is off to gather information and use force if necessary. Codicus picked the right moment to escape. We know who Codicus is. Okay. So what's going on with you, buddy? He'll be free. He earned back his billet. He'll be free if he's successful on this mission. All right. Well, then let's get going. We've been offered a ride by General Soulkeeper. Let's take her up on that.
Commander's destination ahead. Looks like we're in for quite a ride.
We're not flying into that scramble, are we?
By gods, grow a backbone. Scared of a little weather?
Yeah, it's quite a storm.
All hands, full reverse! On your feet. We survived. Somehow.
I really do feel, genuinely, that visually that's an exceptional cutscene. I think it's really good. The explosion and then it getting pulled back is like a really cool concept. And of course, explosions do have some implosive nature to them because of physics.
What to do now?
Large scale, particularly like what's the word I'm looking for? Like the thermobaric concept, right? Thermobaric weapons kind of work on that principle, if I'm not mistaken. So we kind of get that there, but also like this is a fantasy world, so I don't think we're not meant to perceive that like that's so much the case, as we just have this really cool kind of, and this is all gonna get wrapped up in the story here soon. I just think that's like super awesome. So we'll keep playing for a little bit longer. Let's find out what's going on. What just happened, right? We're sailing towards the Bloodstone, massive explosion, then it pulls back on itself.
Our forward propulsion shorted out. What was that?
I think... It's hard for me to actually say, but I think a bloodstone just exploded.
A bloodstone? Then how are we still alive?
Good question, but others might not have been so lucky. I'm going down to scout for survivors, see if I can piece together what happened and why the blast reversed itself.
Watch your back and let me know what you find out. We'll try to get this bird running again.
Canuck was supposed to meet me here. Hope he and his troops were out of range.
Me too. So what was actually destroyed by the blast? Was the propulsion system? Is that what? Our forward propulsion system. Well, it's a good thing, right? That's all, because otherwise we'd be in real trouble at the airship sustain more damage than that, because it's a ways down. Um, and this is where, of course, so the core game, season 1, season 2, into Heart of Thorns, gradually introduced like more verticality to the game. But then with Heart of Thorns, that verticality took a massive step forward, right? Particularly in like Tangled Depths map, where there are multiple layers to the map, and of course we don't, multiple layers, and there's some spots where there's even like 4 more of these. And this map again does like an awesome job of giving us so much of that with the ship up here, and then all this other stuff. And of course, this goes up much higher, where there's like some stuff on this top island and stuff like that. So, and that'll require updrafts. Fortunately, we have updrafts. So this is a fantastic map. Now they did try some stuff on this map that like didn't necessarily play out well, and we'll talk about that a little more when we get to it. We're right at like an hour on this one, so I'm gonna go ahead and close it out here. We got lots of time to explore season 3 and really get into season 3. We had good opportunities. So for today, let's wrap it up. We said goodbye to Air. We said goodbye to Traherne. And we kind of established, what's going on with various characters, right? What's going on with Traherne? What's going on with Ritlock? Bramsoff, poking around. Rock showed back up. We've reestablished the story. We've given the story a new starting point after closing Heart of Thorns. And then we heard about some stuff going on, so we're like, hey, let's go do this, right? What else are we gonna do? We need adventure. Story's got to go somewhere, right? So from a practical point of view, if we step away from like our investment in the storyline of the lore, and we just take a practical look at things, well, the story needs to go somewhere. Now, season 3 is really bad about like bouncing around all over the place and then trying to like kind of pull it all together and use glue and duct tape to kind of make a cohesive storyline out of it. And then this contributes to that, right? Oh, boom! Suddenly now we're chasing White Mantle. Okay, White Mantle it is. And so we go to find out what the White Mantle are doing with this Bloodstone, because Canuck kind of tips us off, and blammo, there's an explosion, and now we're trying to figure out. And this is meant to be those, right? The explosion blew huge chunks of the earth out and then pulled them back and left them suspended, and that's what we see here. So when we come back next time, we are going to find out more about what this explosion was, and we are going to try to learn about the White Mantle threat to the Kingdom of Kryta. So that's where we'll pick it up next time. Thank you for joining me as we begin our playthrough on Season 3. Have a good afternoon.